Level 1. The Recruit. You're sitting in a windowless room at Camp Peary, Virginia. They call it the farm, but nothing grows here except paranoia. You haven't slept in 38 hours. A man with no nameplate slides a folder across the table and tells you to memorize a face. You have 90 seconds. Then he burns it. You're one of 200 candidates. By the end of the year, 14 will remain. Your phone is gone. Your real name is gone. Your girlfriend thinks you're training for a government consulting firm. You rehearse that lie in the mirror every morning until it stops feeling like a lie. They teach you surveillance detection routes, how to walk through a city and know within 6 turns if someone is following you. You learn dead drops, brush passes, one-time pads, and how to recruit a stranger into betraying their own country using nothing but conversation. You fail your first mock interrogation. An instructor playing a foreign intelligence officer breaks your cover story in under 4 minutes. He tells you that in the real world, that's when the electrodes come out. You don't fail again. By month 9, they put you in a simulation, a staged embassy, a staged crisis, a staged asset who dies because you hesitated for 3 seconds at a checkpoint. Your instructor tells you those 3 seconds would have been a bullet in Beirut. You graduate. No ceremony, no applause. A woman you've never met hands you a diplomatic passport with a name you've never seen and a plane ticket to a country you've never been to. You are no longer yourself. Level 2. Field Operative, GS-11. You land in a city you can't name in a cable. Officially, you work in the political section of the U.S. Embassy. You attend dinners, shake hands with diplomats, write reports nobody reads. That's your cover. Your real job starts at 10 p.m. You run surveillance detection routes through market streets and metro stations, doubling back through alleys to make sure no one from the host nation's intelligence service is following you. Then you meet your asset, a mid-level official in a foreign defense ministry who's been feeding you classified troop deployment schedules in exchange for $4,000 a month and eventual resettlement in Virginia. He's terrified. Every meeting, his hands shake. You calm him down. You memorize his wife's name, his daughter's school, his mother's medical condition. You become the only person in his life who knows the truth about what he does. That bond is your weapon. You write up intelligence reports that get cabled back to Langley under a cryptonym. You never see what happens with the information. You just collect. One night, your asset doesn't show. You wait 40 minutes at the fallback site. Nothing. 2 days later, you hear through a liaison channel that a defense ministry official was detained for financial irregularities. You know what that means. Your station chief tells you to burn everything, the communication plan, the cover addresses, the signal sites. Move on, don't dwell. You stare at the ceiling of your apartment that night and realize no one will ever know that man's name. Not even his family will know why he really disappeared. You pour a drink, you don't sleep. In the morning, you start spotting your next target. Level 3. Senior Case Officer, GS-13. You now run a network. Not one asset, 6, spread across 3 countries. Each one is a human life balanced on the edge of exposure, and you hold every thread. You've become fluent in your second language. Your third is passable. You can read a room in any culture and identify the person most likely to betray their government. The one with the gambling debt, the resentment, the ideology, the sick child with no insurance in a country with no healthcare. You've also learned the darkest skill in the CIA's arsenal, the ability to make someone trust you completely while you feel almost nothing. Langley sends you a priority tasking. They need signals intelligence from a communications facility in a denied area country, one where the U.S. has no embassy, no official presence, and no margin for error. You have to recruit someone inside that facility without ever setting foot in the country. You spend 4 months engineering an accidental encounter with a technician from that facility at a telecommunications conference in a third country. You pose as a European tech consultant. Over 3 meetings, you move from small talk to drinks to a quiet dinner where you learn he hasn't been paid in 2 months and his government is threatening to relocate his family. By the 5th meeting, he's yours. You give him a covert communications device disguised as a calculator. You teach him how to use it in a hotel bathroom in 14 minutes. You tell him his cryptonym. You never tell him yours. The intelligence he sends back reaches the president's daily brief within 6 weeks. No one will ever know your name either. Level 4. Targeting Officer, Counter-Terrorism Center. You don't recruit anymore. You decide who dies. You work inside a vault within a vault at Langley, the Counter-Terrorism Center, a windowless floor where the lights never turn off and the clock shows 6 time zones at once.
Your job title is deliberately vague. Your actual function is building the intelligence case that justifies lethal action against specific human beings. They call them target packages. You assemble everything: signals intelligence from NSA, satellite imagery from NGA, human source reporting from case officers you'll never meet, financial transaction records from Treasury, and pattern of life analysis that tracks a single individual's movements across months. You map his couriers, you identify his phone, you learn when he sleeps, where he prays, which car he rides in, and which building he enters every Thursday at 4 p.m. Then you write the assessment, a document that concludes, in precise bureaucratic language, that this individual poses a continuing and imminent threat to U.S. national security and that capture is not feasible. That document goes upstairs, then it goes to the White House, then the president signs a finding. Then a drone takes off from a base in a country that publicly opposes drone strikes but privately provides the runway. You watch the feed. Infrared. A white silhouette walks across a compound, enters a building. The building becomes a bloom of light. The silhouette ceases to exist. You write the battle damage assessment. You confirm the target was eliminated. You note that 2 additional individuals were present in the structure. Their identities are unknown. They are listed as EKIA, enemy killed in action. You don't know if they were enemy. You don't know if they were adults. You go home. Your roommate asks how work was. You say boring and order Thai food and sit on the couch and watch a sitcom and laugh in all the right places. The next morning, you start building the next package.
Level 5, Paramilitary Operations Officer, Ground Branch. You left the desk. You couldn't watch screens anymore. You requested a transfer into Ground Branch, the CIA's most elite direct action unit, buried inside the Special Activities Center, the unit that doesn't exist. To get in, you survive the selection pipeline that borrows from Delta Force, combines it with advanced tradecraft, and adds elements that no military unit trains for. Because military units operate under the laws of armed conflict. You operate under a presidential finding and a legal framework so narrow it might as well be a tightrope over a canyon. Your first deployment, a country where the U.S. has no declared military presence. You're embedded with a local militia that the agency is funding, arming, and directing against the regime Washington wants destabilized. Officially, you're an advisor. In practice, you're leading combat operations with a force that answers to you because you control the money, the weapons, and the satellite phone that calls in air support. You carry a weapon with no serial number. Your uniform has no flag. Your body armor was purchased through a front company in Jordan. If you die here, your family will be told it was a training accident at a facility in North Carolina. Your militia takes a town, then loses it, then takes it again. In between, you watch men you trained commit acts you didn't authorize. You report it in a cable. Langley responds, "Noted. Continue mission." You continue. One night, a mortar round hits 30 feet from your position. A piece of shrapnel catches your interpreter in the throat. You hold pressure on the wound for 9 minutes while calling for a medevac that can't come because you're not supposed to be here and no helicopter can acknowledge your location. He dies looking at your face. He was 23. He had applied for a U.S. visa 3 times. You carry his body to a vehicle and drive him to a village where his family will bury him. You hand them an envelope of cash. You tell them he was brave. You don't tell them who you work for. When you rotate back to Virginia, you sit in a debrief room and describe the deployment in clinical terms. Effective indigenous force, moderate attrition, objectives partially achieved. A man behind a desk nods and types. You walk out into the Langley parking lot and sit in your car for 45 minutes before you turn the key.
Level 6, Team Lead Special Activities Center. This is where the line disappears. You're no longer just one operator. You lead the team, 8 people. Most are former JSOC, Delta, DevGru, 24th STS. You're the CIA officer in charge. You plan, they execute, but you go with them. Your first operation as team lead: infiltrate a compound in a country the U.S. is not officially operating in, plant surveillance equipment on a communications array used by a designated terrorist organization, and extract without detection. If you're caught, the U.S. government will deny your existence. There is no extraction team, there is no backup. There is a cyanide protocol you were briefed on but told you'd probably never need. You cross the border in the back of a modified truck at 0200. You're wearing no insignia, carrying no identification. Your weapon has no serial number. Your boots were purchased in a third country to avoid forensic tracing. The mission takes 11 minutes on target. It feels like 11 hours. When you get back, you write an operational cable that will be read by fewer than 30 people in the entire US government. The file is classified at a level most CIA employees don't even know exists. Over the next 2 years, you lead 14 operations across 5 countries. You lose 1 team member, a former SEAL who took a round through the pelvis during an extraction in a mountain valley. He bled out in a vehicle moving at 90 miles per hour on a dirt road while you held an IV bag above your head and screamed coordinates into a radio. His star went on the wall at Langley. His name went in a book that stays locked in a vault. His family received a flag and a letter from a director who never met him. You attended the private ceremony. You shook his mother's hand. She asked you what her son was doing when he died. You told her it was classified. She said, "I know, they all say that." You start to understand something. At this level, you don't work for a country. You work for a concept, one that operates in the space between what nations say and what nations do.
Level 7. Black Site Commander. You are sent to a place that doesn't appear on any map. It's a compound inside a compound, located on a military installation belonging to a foreign ally, a government that signed a secret bilateral agreement allowing the CIA to operate an interrogation and detention facility on its soil in exchange for $42 million annually and intelligence sharing on its own domestic insurgents. You are the commander. You oversee a staff of 12 interrogators, psychologists, security officers, a medic, and 2 contract linguists with top-secret SCI clearances and histories you are not authorized to review. The facility holds 9 detainees. Each one was captured in a different country. Each one was transported here through a chain of custody that crossed 4 borders, 3 shell companies, and 2 aircraft registered to entities that don't exist. None of them have been charged with a crime. None of them have access to legal counsel. None of them know what country they're in. Your job is to extract actionable intelligence. The techniques authorized by the current legal memorandum include sleep manipulation, environmental adjustment, dietary control, and enhanced stress positions. Every session is documented. Every document is classified. Every classification is reviewed by a legal team at Langley that uses language so precise it can mean anything. One detainee gives you the name of a courier. That courier leads to a communications node. That node leads to a plot targeting a European capital. The plot is disrupted. 1,600 people board a train that doesn't explode. They will never know your name. They will never know this place exists. They will never know that the information that saved them was obtained in a room with no windows, no clock, and a drain in the floor. Another detainee gives you nothing. 14 months of interrogation produce no actionable intelligence. A review board in Washington determines he was likely a case of mistaken identity, wrong place, wrong association, wrong name on a list compiled from a source who was later determined to be fabricating. He's transferred to a third country under a diplomatic agreement. You don't know what happens to him after that. You are instructed not to ask. You fly back to Washington and are debriefed in a room on the 7th floor. They ask you if the program is effective. You say yes. They ask you if it's sustainable. You pause for 3 seconds longer than you should. That pause goes in your file.
Level 8. Chief of Station, Tier 1 posting. You've been named Chief of Station in one of the most strategically critical countries on Earth, a place where the U.S. has massive military, economic, and intelligence equities, where the embassy is a fortress and the CIA station inside it is a fortress within the fortress. You manage 60 officers. You oversee intelligence collection operations targeting the host country's government, military, and intelligence services, even though that government is officially a U.S. ally. Because in this world, ally means a country whose secrets we steal politely. You meet with the host nation's intelligence chief once a week in his office. You share carefully curated intelligence, enough to maintain the relationship, never enough to reveal your sources. He does the same. You both know the other is lying. You both smile. You both sip tea. This is diplomacy at the point of a concealed knife. Your station runs covert operations that the U.S. ambassador does not know about. There are things happening under this embassy's roof that would end the bilateral relationship if exposed. You carry that weight every time you sit across from the ambassador in the morning country team meeting and nod politely while she discusses trade negotiations. A crisis erupts. A regional conflict threatens to draw in U.S. forces. Washington needs real-time intelligence on the host government's military intentions. Are they mobilizing? Are they bluffing? Will they honor their treaty obligations or cut a side deal? You activate a source inside the Defense Ministry, a source so sensitive that his cryptonym is known to only 4 people on Earth. He provides a document, a classified internal memorandum outlining the government's real military posture, which directly contradicts what they're telling the State Department through diplomatic channels. You cable it to Langley on a restricted channel. Within 3 hours, it's in the Oval Office. Within 6 hours, the president's negotiating position changes. The crisis de-escalates. The ambassador sends a cable to Washington praising the diplomatic process. She doesn't know the real reason the other side backed down.
she will never know. And if your source is ever exposed, she will be the first to demand an investigation into who authorized espionage against a treaty ally from inside her own embassy. You will be the one she's looking for. Level 9. Base Chief, Denied Area. You now run an entire covert operational base in a country that is officially hostile to the United States. There is no embassy here. There is no diplomatic cover. If you're caught, you will be interrogated, put on television, and used as a propaganda tool before you disappear forever. You operate under non-official cover, NOC status. Your legend says you're a Canadian infrastructure consultant working for a shell company that traces back through 4 layers of fronts to a Langley office that doesn't appear on any organizational chart. You manage a small team of case officers and a network of local agents, some of whom are inside the country's intelligence service itself. The information you collect goes directly to the National Security Council. You have a direct communication channel to the 7th floor of Langley, the director's suite. Every day is a calculated performance. You eat at local restaurants, you make friends with neighbors, you attend the gym where members of the security services work out, you smile, you lie. You never for 1 second stop being aware that the man sitting next to you at the coffee shop might be counterintelligence. One of your agents gets compromised. You don't know how. You receive a burst transmission at 3 a.m. with a duress code embedded in the signal, a prearranged word that means, "I've been captured and they're making me send this." You have 2 hours to collapse the entire network. You activate emergency protocols you hoped you'd never use. Dead drops are cleared, safe houses are abandoned, covers are burned. One of your officers has to leave the country hidden in a shipping container. You stay, because someone has to rebuild. It takes you 8 months to stand up a new network from nothing. When it starts producing intelligence again, Langley sends you a 1-line cable. Well done. That's all the recognition you will ever receive. Level 10. Task Force Commander. They pull you out of the field for the last time, not because you failed, because you're the best they have, and the best is needed for something that has consumed this agency for years. You are appointed commander of a cross-agency task force with a single objective: find the most wanted human being on the planet. You are given a vault at Langley, a staff of 40 drawn from CIA, NSA, NGA, DIA, and FBI, and a mandate that comes directly from the president's desk. Every intelligence stream in the U.S. government is available to you. Satellite constellations can be retasked on your authority. NSA listening posts on 3 continents can be redirected with a single phone call. And yet, the target is a ghost. For 14 months, you chase fragments: a courier's phone number that goes dead after 1 call, a financial transfer routed through 6 banks in 4 countries that dead ends at a hawala broker in a city you can't send anyone into, a human source who provides a physical description that matches 3,000 men in a single province. You build a wall in the vault: photographs, timelines, link charts, communication patterns. Every morning at 0600, you stand in front of that wall with a coffee that's gone cold and look for the connection you've missed. Your analysts start calling it the chapel because of the way you stand there, silent, staring, like you're praying. On month 15, an NSA intercept catches a fragment, a phone call from a known associate using a phrase that matches a communication pattern your team identified 9 months ago. The call originates from a compound in a city that should be unremarkable. You pull satellite imagery. The compound has unusual security features: high walls, no internet connection, burn barrels for trash. Someone inside that compound doesn't want to be seen from above. For 4 months, you build the case. You brief the director. You brief the national security advisor. You sit in the situation room and present your assessment to the President of the United States. He asks you how confident you are. You say the words you've rehearsed 100 times, knowing they will either define your legacy or destroy it. Sir, based on the totality of intelligence, I assess with high confidence that the target is in that compound. The president nods. The room goes quiet. An operation is authorized. You are not in the helicopter. You are not on the ground. You are in a room on the other side of the world, watching a satellite feed with a 2-second delay, surrounded by people who are holding their breath. When the word comes, target confirmed, the room erupts. People embrace. Someone cries. You sit down. You don't move for a long time, because you know something the celebrating room doesn't. This hunt is over, but the next one has already begun, and the next target is already running. And someone will sit in this chair after you and stare at a new wall and drink cold coffee and pray to a god that doesn't have a security clearance. Level 11. Deputy Division Chief, Clandestine Service. You're back at Langley for good now. Suit and tie, badge with a fake name. You sit on the 4th floor in a vault-doored office and oversee every covert operation across an entire geographic region. Dozens of countries, hundreds of assets, thousands of intelligence reports feeding into the machine. You attend meetings in the Situation Room. You brief members of the National Security Council. You've sat across the table from the Secretary of Defense and told him things about his own allies that changed his facial expression in real time. You approve operations. You sign cables that authorize the recruitment of foreign officials, the penetration of terrorist networks, the disruption of weapons programs. Every signature carries the weight of potential geopolitical fallout. You also attend funerals. Not officially. You stand at the back. You watch a family bury someone whose death was listed as a car accident or a medical event. You know the truth. You authorized the operation that put them in harm's way. You wrote the cable. You assess the risk as acceptable. You carry a classified phone that can ring at any hour. When it rings at 2 a.m., it's never good news. A safe house has been raided. An asset has been arrested. A foreign intelligence service has identified one of your officers. You make decisions in minutes that will be debated in congressional committees for years, except those committees will never hear the real version. You start to notice something about yourself. You've become excellent at compartmentalization. You can sit at your daughter's soccer game on Saturday and feel genuine joy, knowing that 6 time zones away, an operation you authorized is unfolding that could destabilize a government. You don't feel guilt, you feel responsibility, and you've learned that those two things are very different.
Level 12. Director of the National Clandestine Service. You are now the highest-ranking clandestine officer in the United States of America. Every covert operative, every foreign asset, every black site, every denied area operation, every lethal finding, all of it reports to you. You are the person who stands between the president's intent and the shadow world that carries it out. You sit in a 7th floor office at Langley with a view of the Virginia tree line. The office is swept for surveillance devices twice a day. Your schedule is classified. Your movements are tracked by a personal security detail that answers only to you. You attend the president's daily brief. You sit in the Oval Office and deliver assessments that no camera will ever record and no journalist will ever learn. You have told sitting presidents things that made them go silent for a full minute. You've authorized operations that alter the trajectory of wars. You've signed findings that placed American operators inside sovereign nations without those nations' knowledge or consent. You've approved programs that exist in no budget, appear in no database, and will be denied under oath if ever exposed. You also carry the institutional memory of failure. You know about the operations that went wrong, the assets who were executed, the officers who were captured, the missions that created the very threats they were meant to prevent. You know that the line between intelligence and catastrophe is often one bad decision, one compromised communication, one lie that didn't hold. Congress knows a version of what you do. The public knows almost nothing. The full truth is held by fewer than a dozen people, and even they don't know everything, because you've learned that the most powerful form of secrecy is not hiding information, but dividing it so that no single person holds the complete picture. Except you. You hold the complete picture. And some nights, you wish you didn't.
Level 13. Director of the Central Intelligence Agency. You have been nominated by the President, confirmed by the Senate, and sworn in on a Bible in a ceremony attended by cameras, politicians, and journalists who will spend the next 4 years trying to uncover what you actually do. You are the director, the public face of a secret world. You sit in a wood-paneled office on the 7th floor with a portrait of a predecessor on the wall, a man who authorized operations that are still classified 60 years later. You wonder if your portrait will hang there someday, and what secrets will still be locked behind it. Every morning at 0530, a courier delivers the president's daily brief to your desk. You read it before the president does. You annotate it. You decide what context to add when you sit across from him in the Oval Office at 0800 and explain what the world actually looks like beneath the surface that CNN covers. You manage a workforce of 21,000, an annual budget that is classified but runs into the tens of billions. A global infrastructure of stations, bases, safe houses, front companies, technical collection platforms, and human networks that spans every continent, including Antarctica, because yes, even there, someone is watching something. But your real power, the power no one talks about, is the covert action finding. When the president wants something done that cannot be done through diplomacy, sanctions, or military force, he turns to you. A government that needs to be influenced, an election that needs to go a certain way,
a weapons program that needs to be sabotaged, a person who needs to stop existing. You present options, the president decides, you execute. And if it goes wrong, if a source is burned, if an operation is exposed, if a journalist gets too close, you sit in front of the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence in a closed hearing room and absorb the outrage of elected officials who approved the program 6 months ago and now need someone to blame. You don't blame them back. That's not how this works. The agency takes the hit. The agency always takes the hit. You learn what every director eventually learns. You serve at the intersection of intelligence and politics, and those two forces are fundamentally incompatible. Intelligence deals in ambiguity. Politics demands certainty. Your job is to translate one into the other without losing the truth in the process. You don't always succeed. One day, you receive an intelligence assessment that contradicts the president's public position on a foreign policy crisis. The assessment is solid, multiple sources, high confidence, no dissent from the analysts, but delivering it will embarrass the White House. A political advisor calls you and suggests the assessment could be refined. You don't refine it, you deliver it as written. The room goes cold. The president's chief of staff doesn't make eye contact with you for 2 weeks. 3 months later, events prove your assessment correct. No one apologizes, no one thanks you. But the next time you sit in the Oval Office, the president listens a little more carefully. That's your victory. That's what victory looks like at this level. Not applause, not recognition, but a 2-degree shift in the angle at which power listens to truth. You serve for 4 years, maybe 6. Then a new president is elected and you are replaced by someone else. Someone who will sit in that same chair, read that same brief, stare at that same tree line, and slowly come to understand what you now know. That the most powerful person in American intelligence is not the one who holds the secrets, it's the one who decides which secrets to act on and which ones to bury.
Level 14. Retirement. The ghost with a pension. You're out. Your badge has been deactivated. Your secure phone has been collected. Your access to the classified networks that defines your daily reality for 3 decades has been severed with the administrative indifference of an IT ticket. You sit in a house in McLean, Virginia, 12 minutes from the building where you spent your life. You can see the exit for Route 123 from your kitchen window. Every morning you watch the cars turn toward Langley, and you don't turn with them. You have a pension. You have a wife who stayed, or a second wife who understood, or no wife at all because no one could live with the silences. You have children who grew up thinking you worked in government analysis. The older one figured it out in college. She hasn't asked about it. You're grateful for that. People ask you what you did. You say foreign policy work. At dinner parties, someone inevitably brings up the CIA and offers a confident opinion about drone strikes or regime change or intelligence failures. You nod, you sip your wine, you don't correct them. You can't. Not because you don't want to, because the things you know are classified at levels that will outlive you. The operations you ran, the assets you recruited, the people you sent into danger, the people who didn't come back. All of it is locked in vaults you'll never open again. You carry it in your body instead, in the tension in your shoulders when a car backfires, in the way you still sit facing the door of every restaurant, in the 3 a.m. wake-ups when your mind replays a face you haven't seen in 20 years, the face of an asset in a country you can't name, who trusted you with his life, and whose fate you learned about in a 1-line cable marked No Foreign. You were invited to write a memoir. You submitted the manuscript to the Publications Review Board at Langley. They returned it with so many redactions it looked like a prison letter. You published it anyway. Reviewers called it thin. They don't know that the real book, the one with the truth, will never be written. Some days a former colleague calls. You speak in euphemisms and old cryptonyms that no one else in the world would understand. You laugh about things that aren't funny. You don't talk about the things that are. Once a year, you drive to Langley. You badge in as a visitor in a building where you once controlled entire hemispheres. You walk to the lobby. You stand in front of the memorial wall. 133 stars, each one a life, some of them yours, people you recruited, trained, sent, and lost. You know which stars belong to which names. You know the stories behind the ones that remain classified. You know that some of those stars represent mistakes, yours. You stand there for a long time. A young officer walks past, badge clipped to her belt, coffee in hand, moving fast. She doesn't look at the wall. She will someday. You leave. You drive home. You sit in your kitchen and look out the window at the Route 123 exit. The cars are still turning toward Langley. The world is still turning. And the only proof you were ever part of any of it is a star on a wall, a redacted file in a vault, and a silence so deep that has become indistinguishable from peace. You started as a name on a list in a windowless room. You ended as a ghost with a pension and a memory full of things you can never say. The world moved because of decisions you made in rooms that don't exist, on operations that were never acknowledged, for reasons that will be debated by historians who will never have access to the real files. You were the invisible hand, and now the hand is still, and the wall has room for more stars. It always does.